Every cell in my liver is on fire, and not in the fun metaphorical way. The lights are too bright. My skin has gone the color of a manila folder. Somewhere behind my ribs, an organ the size of a football is trying to run damage control on a chemical fire it never agreed to fight. My glutathione, the molecule that was supposed to be my liver's fire extinguisher, ran out 6 hours ago. Nobody told me it could run out. Nobody tells anyone it can run out. There's a nurse checking a monitor. There's a number on a lab report that's climbing the way numbers climb right before someone in scrubs stops making eye contact with you. Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up here. Oh, hey there. Sorry, I get so caught up narrating my own death I forget to introduce myself. I'm dead, by the way. Have been for a while. Time moves weird on this side, so a while could mean 11 years or 11,000. The paperwork's unclear, and frankly, nobody's in a hurry to clarify it. What I do have is an obscene, borderline insulting amount of free time, which I've spent doing the one thing that apparently follows you into the afterlife: watching people run around inside bodies they never bothered to read the manual for. Millions of them. Eating, drinking, panicking, healing, ignoring the little voice that says, maybe don't take that with that. I've watched livers detoxify wine and painkillers and pesticides and heartbreak. I've watched a woman survive a rattlesnake bite and then nearly die from mixing 2 harmless over-the-counter pills. I am, and I cannot stress this enough, not a doctor. I never went to medical school. I went, as you may have gathered, to the morgue. My credentials are exclusively vibes and repetition. But when you watch the same biological disaster happen a few 100,000 times, you start to notice the pattern. So let's talk about your liver, the most quietly heroic, chronically underappreciated organ you own, and what actually happens inside it when 2 medications meet each other for the first time in your bloodstream. Here's the first thing almost nobody understands about your liver. It doesn't get a say in what you take. Your stomach can refuse food. Your lungs can cough something back out. Your skin can literally build a wall around a splinter. But your liver? Whatever chemical shows up in your bloodstream, aspirin, wine, a mystery gummy from a friend's purse, a prescription your doctor approved 8 years ago and you never stopped taking, your liver has to process. No opt-out, no union break. It is legally, biologically, permanently on shift. Almost everything you swallow that isn't food gets funneled through a process scientists cheerfully call first-pass metabolism, which is a polite way of saying your liver tastes everything before your body does. Blood from your gut doesn't go straight into general circulation. It detours through the liver first, via a vessel called the portal vein, like a customs checkpoint at an airport. Inside your liver cells, hepatocytes if you want the fancy name, sits a family of enzymes called cytochrome P450, or CYP450 for short. A handful of these enzymes, CYP3A4 especially, are responsible for metabolizing an almost comedic percentage of all prescription drugs on the market. One enzyme family, roughly half of everything in your medicine cabinet. Your pancreas deserves overtime pay, sure, but CYP3A4 deserves a corner office. This is phase 1 metabolism, chemically modifying a drug, usually by adding or exposing a reactive oxygen group so it can be handled. Then comes phase 2. Your liver attaches something to that modified molecule, glucuronic acid, sulfate, or importantly, glutathione, to make it water-soluble enough to be shipped out through urine or bile. Glutathione is the part of this story you need to remember. It's your liver's mop, its fire blanket. It neutralizes some of the nastiest reactive byproducts your metabolism produces. And here's the twist nobody puts on the label. You only have so much of it in reserve at any given moment. Here's something your nervous system will never tell you, no matter how badly it's failing. Your liver has no pain receptors on its actual tissue. None. Zero. The organ that processes literally everything you consume can be quietly dying and send you no distress signal whatsoever, because pain fibers only exist on the liver's outer capsule, and that only hurts once the organ is swollen enough to stretch it. This is, evolutionarily, an enormous design flaw dressed up as a feature.
Your brain evolved to trust pain as its primary something is wrong alarm system. Stub your toe, you know instantly. Your liver can be in genuine biochemical crisis for days, and your brain, which is only getting reports from nerves that don't cover the organ itself, stays completely convinced everything is fine. You might feel tired, maybe a little nauseated. Easy to blame on stress, a bad night's sleep, a bug going around. Your brain isn't lying to you out of malice, it just genuinely doesn't have the sensor for this. It's running the most sophisticated warning system in the known universe off a network with a massive blind spot, and it has no idea the blind spot exists. Why would evolution build an organ this important with so little pain feedback? Best guess, and this lands more in likely than known, is that pain is metabolically and behaviorally expensive. An organ that's constantly under mild chemical stress, which the liver always is, digesting toxins from food, alcohol, bacteria, plants, can't afford to scream every time. If it did, you'd be in agony after every meal. So, evolution made a trade-off. Mute the alarm for routine stress and only trigger it once the damage is severe enough to physically stretch the capsule. That trade-off works great for berries and slightly off meat. It works catastrophically against modern pharmacology, where a single overlooked interaction can silently escalate for days before anything hurts.
Which brings us to something stranger. What actually happens when two medications show up in your system at the same time? You wake up at 3 a.m. with a headache the size of a parade. You take a painkiller. You already took a dose of a different medication for your blood pressure 12 hours ago. Plus, you had 2 glasses of wine with dinner. In your head, these are 3 unrelated events. In your liver, they just became roommates competing for the same enzyme. Drug interactions inside the liver mostly come down to one of 3 things: competition. 2 drugs that both need CYP3A4 to get metabolized show up at once. The enzyme can only work one substrate at a time, so one drug gets delayed, meaning it lingers in your bloodstream longer and at higher concentration than your doctor calculated for. Induction. Some substances, chronic alcohol use being the textbook example, actually train your liver to produce more of a specific enzyme, CYP2E1 in this case. Sounds efficient, it isn't. CYP2E1 metabolizes acetaminophen down a side pathway that produces a genuinely toxic byproduct called NAPQI. More CYP2E1 means more NAPQI produced from the exact same dose you'd normally handle without issue, while simultaneously, alcohol has already been quietly draining your glutathione reserves, the very thing that's supposed to neutralize NAPQI. It's a pincer move your body never saw coming, executed by 2 substances that individually felt completely manageable. Inhibition. The opposite problem. One substance jams an enzyme's machinery entirely. Grapefruit juice famously disables an intestinal enzyme that normally breaks down a whole class of medications before they're fully absorbed. Skip that enzyme and suddenly your body is absorbing far more of a drug than the dose on the bottle was ever designed to deliver. 1 glass of juice and your normal dose behaves like an overdose. Fast fact, the grapefruit interaction isn't folklore. It's well documented in pharmacology literature, and it's specific to grapefruit's furanocoumarins, not something oranges or apples do. Your liver has strong opinions about citrus, apparently. Here's the part nobody tells you. Acetaminophen, the most common over-the-counter painkiller on Earth, sitting in your cabinet right now under a dozen brand names, is at normal recommended doses extremely safe. It's also the leading cause of acute liver failure in the United States. Both of those sentences are true at the same time, and the reason why is the entire plot of this video. At a normal dose, roughly 90 to 95% of acetaminophen gets processed through the safe, boring phase 2 pathway, attached to glucuronic acid or sulfate, shipped out, no drama. A small remaining slice, maybe 5 to 10%, gets routed instead through CYP2E1, the enzyme we just met, and converted into NAPQI. Under normal circumstances, your glutathione reserves neutralize that NAPQI as fast as it's produced. Fire, meat extinguisher, no problem. But glutathione isn't infinite. It's a pool that refills gradually, mostly overnight, mostly dependent on adequate nutrition. Chronic alcohol use, malnutrition, or existing liver stress can leave that pool already low before you've taken a single pill. Add heavier or more frequent dosing on top of a depleted reserve, and the math flips. NAPQI production starts outpacing your glutathione's ability to mop it up. The excess NAPQI doesn't just float around harmlessly, it directly binds to proteins inside liver cells and kills them. The genuinely unsettling part is the delay. Someone in the early stages of this process often feels almost nothing, maybe mild nausea, easily dismissed. It can take a full day or 2 for lab values to show the damage clearly.
clearly, and by the time obvious symptoms show up, jaundice, confusion, the manila folder skin tone I mentioned earlier, a significant amount of liver tissue may already be compromised. Silent injury on a delay from something sold next to the gum at every checkout counter in the country. This isn't a fringe statistic. Acetaminophen-related liver injury is consistently cited in U.S. clinical and public health literature as the single most common cause of acute liver failure nationally, more than viral hepatitis, more than any other drug. To put the scale in perspective, acute liver failure overall is a genuinely rare event, affecting a few thousand Americans a year, and acetaminophen sits at the top of the list of causes more than every other cause put together. That's like one contestant winning a race against the entire rest of the field put together. It's not that the drug is unusually dangerous when used correctly, it's that it's used by so many people, so casually, in so many combination products that even a small risk multiplied by enormous exposure adds up to a very real number. Which brings us to the part where I get to be smug, because eternity has shown me the same 3 myths on repeat. Myth 1. Natural or herbal supplements are gentler on your liver than pharmaceuticals. Reality. False, and dangerously so. Your liver doesn't check ingredient philosophy, it just processes molecules. Certain herbal products, including some marketed as detox or weight loss aids, have well-documented associations with liver injury in clinical case reports, precisely because they're less regulated and less studied for interaction risk, not because natural means metabolically gentle. Why it's false: natural describes a compound's origin. Hemlock is natural too. Myth 2. You definitely feel it if your liver was struggling. Reality. False. We already covered this one. No pain receptors on the tissue itself, remember? By the time pain shows up, the organ's outer capsule is already stretched from swelling, which means damage is already underway. Why it's false: pain is a warning system built for injury your brain expects, not slow internal chemistry it has no direct sensor for. Myth 3. If a doctor prescribed it and a pharmacist sold it separately, it's automatically safe to combine. Reality. False. Different providers, different pharmacies, and definitely different over-the-counter aisles often don't have visibility into everything else you're taking, especially combination cold and flu products, which frequently contain acetaminophen buried in the ingredient list under a totally different sounding brand name. Why it's false: safety information is only as good as the complete picture, and no single person in the chain may actually have that complete picture except you.
Myth 4. Skipping a dose to be safe and then doubling up later evens things out. Reality? False. Your liver doesn't average things over time. It processes what's in front of it right now, with the enzyme and glutathione capacity available right now. Doubling a dose doesn't distribute evenly across the missed window. It just spikes concentration at a single moment, which is exactly the kind of spike that outpaces your metabolic capacity. Why it's false? Biology runs on real-time processing, not retroactive bookkeeping. Here's the part your body hopes never happens, but let's talk about it anyway. What does your liver actually sacrifice to protect the rest of you? When your liver is under serious chemical load, it triages. Detoxification takes priority over almost everything else the organ does, including its day job of managing blood sugar, producing clotting factors, and clearing bilirubin. That's why acute liver injury often shows up as a cluster of seemingly unrelated symptoms. Confusion, the liver isn't clearing ammonia properly, which affects the brain; easy bruising, clotting factor production is dropped; and jaundice, bilirubin is backing up. None of those symptoms individually screams liver, which is part of why acute liver failure is so often caught late. The organ is quietly cannibalizing its other functions to keep fighting the chemical fire, and the collateral damage shows up everywhere except where the actual problem is. It's the biological equivalent of a company burning its marketing budget to keep the servers running. Nothing looks broken from the outside until suddenly everything does. Here's where biology cheats though, because not everyone's liver runs the same software. Genetic variation in CYP450 enzymes is enormous. Some people are ultra-rapid metabolizers of a given enzyme pathway and burn through medications far faster than average, sometimes converting a normally safe dose into a startlingly high concentration of an active or toxic metabolite in a shorter window than expected. Others are poor metabolizers and process the same drug so slowly that a standard dose accumulates in their system like a slow leak. This is known science. Pharmacogenomics is an entire clinical field built around it, but it's not routinely tested for in everyday prescribing, mostly because it's expensive and the healthcare system hasn't caught up to the science yet. Two people, same age, same weight, same pill, same time of day, genuinely different biological outcomes because their liver enzymes were never running identical code to begin with.
All right, enough horror. Let's talk about agency, because fear without action is just anxiety with better branding. Here's a checklist, the actual practical stuff, no fluff. Read the active ingredients, not just the brand name. Combination cold, flu, and sleep products very often contain acetaminophen hidden inside a name that sounds nothing like acetaminophen. Check every label before combining products. Keep one running list of everything you take, prescriptions, over-the-counter, supplements, even the harmless stuff, and show that full list to every pharmacist and doctor every time. They can't screen for interactions they don't know about. Ask a pharmacist before combining anything new, even 2 over-the-counter products. Pharmacists are drug interaction specialists. They're usually free to talk to, and this is quite literally what they trained for. Never assume alcohol and medication timing cancel out. Spacing them apart by a few hours doesn't reset your liver's enzyme activity or glutathione levels. Both can stay altered for much longer than the alcohol itself takes to leave your system. Never double up a missed dose without checking guidance first. Your liver processes what's in front of it in real time. It doesn't average out a missed dose over a longer window. Watch for the quiet symptoms, not just dramatic ones. Unusual fatigue, mild nausea, loss of appetite, or urine that's darker than usual. None of these scream liver, which is exactly why they're worth taking seriously. If you drink regularly, treat that as medically relevant information, not a lifestyle detail to leave out. It genuinely changes how your liver processes other medications, and your provider needs to know. Store medications by what they treat, not by brand, so you're less likely to accidentally double up on the same active ingredient sold under 2 different names. When in doubt about a combination, don't wing it. Call a poison control line or pharmacist. They exist for exactly this uncertainty, and using them is not an overreaction. If you or someone near you show signs of acute liver distress, confusion, yellowing skin or eyes, severe abdominal pain, or unusual bruising, treat it as an emergency and get medical care immediately. This is a situation where speed of treatment measurably changes outcomes. And that's only half the story, because here's the genuinely miraculous part. Your liver is one of the only organs in your entire body that can regenerate significant portions of its own mass. Living liver donors routinely have well over half their liver removed, and it grows back to nearly full function within a matter of months. Almost nothing else in you can do that. Not your heart, not your brain, not, tragically, your knees.
Which makes what happens with severe drug injury even more of a tragedy of timing, rather than a tragedy of biology. The liver wants to survive this. It's built an entire regenerative system specifically for the job. The point of no return isn't really about whether your liver could theoretically recover. It's about whether treatment arrives before the damage outpaces the organ's ability to regenerate faster than it's failing. Get help early enough, and there are legitimate antidotes and treatments that can interrupt the NAPQI cascade before it becomes catastrophic. Get help too late, and no amount of regenerative capacity can outrace the clock. So here's where I tell you the moral of the story, except I already died mid-metaphor at the top of this video, so let's just call it what it is. Things I wish someone had explained to me while I still had a pulse. I wish I'd known my liver couldn't scream at me the way my ankle could. I wish I'd known over-the-counter doesn't mean no interaction risk. It just means no prescription required, which is a very different sentence. I wish I'd known that wine and a headache pill aren't 2 separate small decisions. They're one combined chemical event happening in the same organ at the same time, competing for the same resources. I wish someone had told me that my liver was quietly the most optimistic organ I owned, regenerating, adapting, absorbing chemical hit after chemical hit without complaint. And that optimism was not, in fact, an unlimited resource. I'm not going to pretend this was some noble sacrifice. It wasn't. It was 3 completely ordinary decisions made on 3 completely ordinary days by someone who genuinely thought he was being careful. That's the part that should actually unsettle you. Not that reckless people occasionally get hurt, but that careful people, doing normal things, get blindsided by an organ that never once complained until it was too late to fix quietly. The good news, and there is good news, I promise, I'm not just eternally doom-scrolling your biology for fun, is that your liver is forgiving right up until it isn't. It regenerates, it adapts, it gives you enormous margin for error most of the time. The trick isn't fear. The trick is just reading the label asking the pharmacist, treating just one more as a real biological event instead of a rounding error. Understand your liver, and you get to go back to the truly wonderful, boring, ordinary business of being alive. Headaches, hangovers, holiday dinners, all of it, without it quietly turning into the plot of your own cautionary tale. If you want more videos like this, subscribe.